So this is going to hurt your. It's going to hurt your heart. This is Bernie Sanders responding to the Democrats voting to screw over workers. So the Democratic Party, there was a railroad strike. Railroad workers were threatening a strike and that they would win immediately. And all they wanted was sick days. They don't have any sick days if you're a railroad worker. And the Democrats decided to intervene so that they couldn't strike and screw them out of sick days. So now they don't get to have sick days and they have a shitty job. That's because the Democrats did that. And so Bernie Sanders said this. Does he call out Joe Biden and the Democrats? Does he tell you that they're completely bought by oligarchs and that we need to stand up? We need a revolution. He used to start every speech in 2016. This sounds like you're ready for a revolution. Is he going to say any of that? Is he going to call out the Democrats? Let's see what he says.
I know that many of you have been following what's been going on with regard to the crisis in the rail industry. And let me just mention to you that yesterday, on Thursday, we had both a victory and a loss on the floor of the Senate.
No.
A victory.
Was the victory that Ben & Jerry's have a new flavor called Bernie Sanders Nutty Disappointment?
Does he spell victory unrelieved despair?
The victory was that we had every single Democrat except Joe Manchin vote to make sure that workers in the rail industry got 7 days paid sick leave. We also had, surprisingly enough, 6 Republicans coming on board that legislation. So we had...
So just to recap, we completely screwed you, but this week only 25% off Joe Manchin toilet paper.
Wait, so the victory is that a bunch of people voted in a thing that they lost?
Yeah.
That's the victory.
The victory was that workers don't get sick days. That's not a victory, Bernie. That's a crushing defeat. That's a crushing defeat for workers. And it was spearheaded by your party. Joe Biden, your good friend.
Majority of members of the United States Senate, but given the absurd rules of the Senate, you needed 60 votes, and we did not have the 60 votes, so we lost. I should also add that our colleagues in the House did a great job, led by the progressives there, in making sure that that legislation, that amendment, passed the House. So I just want to say to the railroad workers out there, this is...
He congratulated the progressives in the House. You know, like former lineman AOC. In solidarity, they're all getting Southwest Chief manicures this week. Especially Jamal, who's also painting his toenails. Did you hear that?
Oh, I thought he just does that. That's but for this.
Here we go.
An issue we are not going to give up
They're
on.
not going to give up on this issue. Except when we go to Uncle Joe's house. You know, my best friend, a.k.a. Secret Santa, for the railroad tycoons.
A member of the Health, Education, and Labor Committee, and we're going to do everything that we can to end the absurdity of workers in that industry having zero paid.
See, he's on the committee. That's right. I'm a senior member of that committee, and that's what I did with your millions of working class dollar donations. I prop up the system while sitting on a committee, and every once in a while shaking my head.
We're gonna do what we can, which by the way is nothing. They're gonna do literally nothing.
Nothing. He's gonna literally do nothing to fight for railroad workers. And guess what? Guess what he's not mentioning? Joe Biden could, by an executive order, give those railroad workers health care, or he could give them sick days. He's not going to mention it. He's not mentioning it. Let's keep going. Let's just start at the beginning.
I know that many of you have been following what's been going on with regard to the crisis in the rail industry. And let me just mention to you that yesterday, on Thursday, we had both a victory and a loss on the floor of the Senate. But the victory was that we had every single Democrat except Joe Manchin vote to make sure that workers in the rail industry got 7 days paid sick leave. We also had, surprisingly enough, 6 Republicans coming on board that legislation. So we had a majority of members of the United States Senate, but given the absurd rules of the Senate, you needed 60 votes, and we did not have the 60 votes. So we
It's
lost.
not a victory.
I should also
There's no
add that
victory
our
there.
colleagues in the House did a great job, led by the progressives there, in making sure that that legislation, that amendment, passed the House. So I just want to say to the railroad workers out there, this is an issue we are not going to give up on. I'm a senior member of the Health, Education, and Labor Committee, and we're going to do everything that we can to end the absurdity.
Except, mention the fact that Joe Biden could do this with an executive order. I'm not going to mention that because I'm not that dumb. Okay? I'm not going to go against my good friend Joe.
of workers in that industry having
He won't
zero
even fucking mention that.
Yeah, well, it's got
paid sick days. And, as I think many of you know, when we talk about the corporate greed that is sweeping this country, which disgusts so many Americans.
You mean like the $40 billion in Ukraine aid that you voted for, you fucking war pig? You mean that kind of corporate corruption? $40 billion that you voted for? While $275 million is all it would have cost to give those guys sick leave. But you voted for the $40 billion, right? You fucking war pig. It's the corporate corruption? What do you call that, Bernie? Why did you vote for war? Why did you vote for $40 billion for a bullshit proxy war? You don't think you're corrupt? You don't think that's corruption?
I think that it's fair to say that the railroad industry, in many ways, is the poster child for that type of greed. You have an industry that in the first...
No, what the poster child for greed is, Bernie, is you sending $100 billion to Ukraine, the most corrupt fucking country in Europe, while people are sleeping under every bridge in this country and railroad workers don't even have sick leave. That's disgusting. And you did it, Bernie. You, war pig.
You know, the best case scenario here of Bernie is that he's being blackmailed somehow.
Yeah,
that's best case scenario.
Best case
he's
scenario.
Not just a complete evil piece of shit. Like,
he's given us his talking points from 2016.
Yeah.
As if, anyway.
Quarters of this year made $21 billion in profit. They had so much money, they were able to provide $25 billion in stock buybacks and dividends
yeah, we know,
to their
dude.
wealthy shareholders.
We know.
You know this point.
The CEOs of the different railroads were making, in some cases, $20 million
Oh, no
a year.
kidding.
One guy made $14 million a year.
And what are you going to
$10
do
million
about
a
it?
year. This guy's making money.
You going to put a hold on the bill? What are you going to do about it? You going to tell your followers to get in the street and protest? No. You going to fucking do something with Joe Biden? No, nothing.
He should have to wear pigtails like Greta Thunberg because
Yes.
he's a largely symbolic nothing.
Yes.
And over this. The business situation for the railroads has never, ever been better. They're rolling in money. And yet if you're a railroad worker today and you come down with COVID, if your wife is having a baby and you try to get some time off, you get penalized for that, you can get fired for getting sick in the railroads. And that is, literally unbelievable in the year 2022. And it's just an extreme example of the kind of corporate greed that exists in our country today. As Congress winds down now, this session, it is clear to many of us that we have an enormous amount of work in front of us. It's not
That will never get done.
Well, they have to work to cover over the fact that they're not going to fix this.
That's right. The work to cover over it. The Democrats had 2 years complete power and did fucking absolutely nothing for people.
We're going to have to come up with a really good story because people are really to act like we're the Union Party.
They're going to pass another $40 billion for Ukraine before they get any.
That's
They're never
right.
going to get anything for the railroad workers, but they're going to pass the $40 billion, but do nothing for them.
dealing with the crisis facing rail workers. It's the absurdity that we remain the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid family and medical leave, something we got to deal with. We are dealing with the reality that in America today, tens and millions of our people are hurting. 60% of the American people are living paycheck to paycheck. You got older workers out there who've worked their entire lives. They got nothing in the bank, scared to death about their retirement, which is why we got to strengthen Social Security. We have to strengthen Medicare, and obviously
What a
eventually
dick.
move to Medicare for all,
What
because
an asshole.
healthcare is a human right, not a privilege.
What a fucking...
We got to deal with the childhood poverty in this country.
What?
We gotta
Just
restore the
fucking words.
$350
Just
a
fucking
month,
words.
Child tax credit. We got to deal with the dysfunction.
We got to do all this stuff. You mean now that you guys don't have control of Congress anymore? Now you want to do that shit? Bernie will never hold the Democrats accountable for anything ever. He's a fucking war pig, and he's running interference right now for a party that just screwed over workers. He's protecting the party.
Really got big work ahead of them.
Got to deal with housing, where we got some 600,000 Americans who are homeless and 18 million households
Yeah, why don't you send a couple of more $1 billion to Ukraine, fuckface?
spending 50% or more of their income, limited incomes, on housing. Obviously, it goes without saying, you got to deal with the existential threat of climate change.
But what were we talking about? I can't even remember.
I can't remember what we're talking about. But you know, my new slogan is eventually Medicare. Eventually. That's my new slogan. I'm sucking the blue cock. I can't suck the red cock. Trump's cock was the most corrupt cock in the history of cocks. The blue cock gives you liberty and freedom and crushes your strikes before they can happen. Hang on, there's more.
The planet left to worry about. So there is an enormous amount of work to be done, and in my view, the real change, the impetus for change, is not going to come from Washington. It's going to come from the grassroots.
It's obvious it's not coming from Washington, asswipe.
Wait, Bernie, could it come from Washington?
So it's up to the grassroots, Bernie says. Bernie, we're the grassroots, and you left us on the lawn holding our fucking dicks in our hand.
We've got
okay?
a lot of work to do to continue to get you to do that.
When is it ever up to you, Bernie? When is it ever up to you? When are you going to put a hold on a bill? When are you going to lead a protest? When are you going to fucking call on your followers to do something?
Who's paying you to say that to me?
When is it ever up to you? When is it ever up to fucking you? It's always up to the grassroots. Well, the grassroots do a lot of shit. Like we had, I don't know if you remember, we had a bunch of healthcare activists that could actually force a vote for Medicare for all, and you were fucking AWOL, you pussy. You lapdog to power fucking war pig. Anything you'd like to say, Hare?
Who's paying you? Jimmy.
Bernie Sanders better hope I don't ever run into him. That's all I have to say. I hope I don't ever run into him because I have dad issues. I have father complex. My dad didn't love me enough.
Yeah.
And so I take it all out on him.
Can you imagine him debating with like Jackie Mason, the dueling? What are you doing?
Hey, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, December 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th. And we're going to be in Tempe, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets. See you there.